My name's Daniel McCaffrey. One of my hobbies is road layout and transport and traffic management, just seeing how things are on the street. My occupation is a noticer. I notice things. And I was down in Island Bay in Wellington a couple of years ago, and I thought, boy, oh boy, that's interesting. I've never seen that before. And so, slowly over the last couple of years, I've kept an eye on the situation because I was amazed.
So here's what they've done. If you have a look at that car there, he's in the parking spaces which are now well away from the pavement, from the sidewalk, from the footpath. On the right of the car, as you can see there, is a lane with a dashed line down the middle, and that is the cycleway. Now I can only surmise that it's divided in two to perhaps divide, because it's all cycling one way. There's a similar cycle path on the other side of the road. It's perhaps so the passengers can open their door in safety. Now, if you look where he's parked it, he hasn't parked it right in the car park. He's had to move it off because what has happened is that what was once the widest street in Wellington, I believe, has now got the narrowest carriageway for traffic. It's extremely narrow. And the moment the driver opens his door, there is no manoeuvring room for traffic to avoid him. The door will be wiped off the car. It's extremely dangerous to open the driver's door. Now, it has proved dangerous for the passengers to get out and cross the cycleway. One poor woman was injured seriously in an accident. What has happened is that the expectations of the driver and the passenger have radically changed. The driver can no longer open his car door on the widest street in Wellington and have some leeway, some space, so the door won't be wiped off by passing traffic. And furthermore, passengers who all their lives and elsewhere in Wellington have been able to open their door freely without any consideration for cyclists now have to take them into consideration. Never done this before, don't do it elsewhere. And also they have to cross the cycleway, in which case there's a possibility of some character hurling along in a mechanical contraption with spiky things in the front at about 50 kilometres an hour. The effects of having the narrowest carriageway in Wellington is also extremely dangerous for traffic because they've got to watch out for motorists opening their door. So everyone's behaviour has had to change for this very short space of cycleway. The drivers have to be worried about drivers opening their door. The drivers have to worry about opening their door. The passengers have to worry about opening their door and crossing the cycleway. It's not a good outcome, is it? Have a look at this character pulling his car out, reversing it out onto the main carriageway. Previously, he would have reversed out of the widest street in Wellington, and there'd be quite a little distance before the back of his car was actually in the path of traffic. This isn't so anymore. The moment the back bumper of that car comes out onto the carriageway, he's in real trouble. When it was the widest street in Wellington, he'd had quite a bit of ground when the bumper would have gone past the parked cars, and any traffic coming down would have spotted him, and everybody would have the situation under control. At the moment, traffic driving towards him don't stand a chance. His bumper will be there. There'll be no way they'll get out of his way. There are road traffic engineers in Burundi designing goat tracks with a better outcome than this and a lot less dangerous. And as you can see, sometimes the pedestrians are mixed up with cyclists, and sometimes the cyclists have to dive round behind bus stops so the buses can actually park and pick up passengers. And sometimes there isn't any carriageway. You know, it's reverted back to the old system all of a sudden that you haven't spotted, and pedestrian crossings have to take all sorts of things into account that they weren't taking into account before. This is an omni-shambles.
So you've seen what they've done. The next question would be, what would lead to such crass stupidity? What on earth would be in people's heads that would lead them to doing such things? And like all political actions, and you know, it is a political action, the decision that people in Wellington will take up walking and cycling as part of their everyday lives, goes back to the 1970s, if not 1968. And the Club of Rome at that time, 1972, and I read the report from cover to cover, thinking, wow, we're in real trouble. simply said that we in the world in the next years from 1972 on up to the year 2000, we're going to run out of resources. Leads to the ideas of sustainability. And that we would run out of tin and tungsten and copper, but particularly oil. And this crescendo of opinion built up through the years, and by the 1990s, Janet Fitzsimmons is utterly convinced we're going to run out of oil. We'll reach peak oil. And for that reason, because we weren't going to have any oil and we couldn't drive our cars, we were going to have to take up walking and cycling. And cycling became a mantra. And you can well understand that. The only trouble was the facts never matched the theories, and I think Island Bay demonstrates that wonderfully. People got a theory in their heads, particularly in council staff and in the kind of people they elected to council, and particularly our very last deluded Mayor of Wellington, that cycling was going to be the way of the future. And you know the problem? They forgot where they were. Because the people advocating cycling in Wellington don't know where they are. You see, Wellington suffers from a colossal amount of verticality. It's bloody vertical. It is the most hilly city in the world. San Francisco, Rio de Janeiro, all these places have got no hills really. And secondly, it's the windiest city in the world. The weather in Wellington oscillates between an 80 to 120 kilometre an hour gale coming from the north, or, just for a bit of variety, an 80 to 130 kilometre gale from the south. And in between, on the occasional day, if we're lucky, there is what we in Wellington call a good day. And they're quite right. Nothing beats Wellington on a good day. That's because you've had 7 rotten ones. Now think about cycling. You're cycling into a 120 kilometre an hour gale. That'll tighten up the old fitness, eh? And it's raining. Raining horizontal, right? That'll do wonders for cycling, won't it? I mean, people will be rushing out thinking, oh, God, I hate the comfort of my car and the coffee cup and the Grateful Dead playing on this thing and the heating. Oh, Jesus, 22, I die at 22 degrees centigrade. And, I can sit here and there's no effort and there's no hills. I just press down that little thing like that, see, and I go zooming up the hill. People, you see, you've got to look at what the alternative is. Cyclists, all these planners, they never think wide. What's the alternatives to driving people to walk and to cycle? What other choices do they have? Well, they have them. And they take them. So what's been the result of the Island Bay Cycleway? Well, it cost $1.something million. Even reconsulting about the Ballsup that the council has made has cost $250,000 as well. Cleaning the place up and getting it back to what the good citizens of Island Bays enjoyed before this economic and bloody physical catastrophe landed on their doorstep, it's going to cost $7 million. And that's all coming from the pockets of ratepayers, retailers. It's taken out of their pockets and squandered on what will eventually be admitted to be a blatant stupidity. And what's the other outcome? Has cycling increased? No, it's gone down. From 2013 to 2017, after they built the Cycleway, the number of cyclists went down. That was one effect. Because the weather hasn't changed, the wind hasn't stopped blowing, and it's bloody dangerous, even for cyclists, much as the efforts they took it. They lost about 57 car parks. I don't think they know how important car parks are for retailers. They have no idea how much damage they're doing to the retail environment in Island Bay. There is no way I go down there and take my life in hand just to buy an ice cream or something. I used to. And it goes on and on. The National Road Authority told them it was a really dumb idea. And you say, well, why have they persisted? Well, apart from that philosophical idea that you're going to run out of oil and all sorts of things, and the wind in Wellington is going to calm down and never blow again, and they get our D10 bulldozers and flatten the place so it looks like Amsterdam. Apart from all that, when you look down into the philosophy they expressed for building these cycleways, it'll all come right when they network them. You know, as I said, the wind will calm down, it'll stop blowing, and it won't be so bloody awful to be a cyclist and so dangerous. And when they built from Island Bay into Newtown and onto the city, networked, well, I drove up that road. In one part there, as you go towards the city, coming out of Island Bay, the cars have to park on the sidewalk, you know, halfway up the sidewalk, illegally, because there's not enough room on the roads. In other words, they are going to take already narrow roads, not like the wide road they started in Island Bay, and make them even more narrower to fit in 109 cyclists. That, you know, exhibits a kind of thinking that really is disturbing in how it could function like that. Build it and they will come. No, they won't come. The wind will not calm down and stop blowing. Wellington will not be flattened in an earthquake and become cycle friendly. Those conditions will continue as they are, and people have alternative, more sensible, warmer, comfortable, more accommodating, more spacious ways of getting to the city than sitting with your head down and your bum up in the air, pedalling towards the car in front. They really have. So how do we stop this kind of thinking? Well, I've got to give the local councillor Paul Eagle credit. He stepped up to the frame and has tried to drive some sense into this. The cyclists, of course, endowed with optimism that one day the world will run out of oil, say that, you know, the uptake will rise when they get a continuous route through to Newtown. I don't think it'll change. I don't think it'll change at all until there is some political punishment for people who are spending money with wild abandon, with absolutely no accountability whatever. Because that's what people can do in public office if you let them get away with it. So my advice is for Wellingtonians to actually have a look at this cycling business and see how much damage they will have inflicted on their city for what I would say is the very selfish needs in Island Bay of 109 cyclists that stand from 124 and a mere 95 in 2013, and ask if they can inflict economic, physical endangerment to the citizens of Island Bay for such pathetic return. Simple. Make sure you know how they stand on these issues, and if you don't want your suburb and your roadways wrecked for such a hopeless cause as cycling in the most vertical, the windiest city in the world, the matter's in your own hands.